Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. I'm really looking forward to this one. How many of us are prepared for retirement? How prepared are we, or our clients, more importantly? So that'll be the topic of the day. But first, just kind of go through. Will, how are you?
Great to be back. I think I missed the last episode or two. So great to be back, and great group today.
Oh, no, we missed you. I know some interesting action on the regulatory front. A whole other show I think we could do on some legislation that California passed, giving people guaranteed income. Will, maybe you can do some homework for us and tell us more in a future episode about what that means.
For sure.
Ramsey, good to see you.
Great to be here. Hoping I don't get a homework assignment too. Love being here.
Yeah. All right. And then, listen, we're actually, this is sort of a first for us. We actually have our first guest host. And our first guest host is Martin Powell, who is head of CUNA Mutual Group's Annuity Distribution and a longtime veteran of our industry. Martin, how are you?
Great, Paul. Thanks for having me.
No, welcome to the show. Tell us, people, a little bit about what you're doing, what you're focused on before we jump into the show.
Well, thanks. This is a passion of mine, and it's really top of mind, especially after COVID-19. So many Americans have this on their mind. Will they be ready for retirement? Now, when I started my career over 31 years ago, traditional pension plans played a big role in helping people retire with dignity and security in their golden years. Historically, someone who traditionally made $50,000 could retire at 60% with an annual fixed income for the rest of their life. Today, the challenge today, that person needs to save over $800,000 to have that same life. And this was the backbone of hardworking Americans in this country, their ability to have access to pension plans. And as we know, the shift on Wall Street to de-risk their exposure and risk on their balance sheet and leave it up to hardworking Americans. And that's what I'm so excited about what we do at CUNA Mutual Group, because we've been doing it for 85 years. We're really focused on middle-class America, helping them get access to a brighter financial future through credit union, bank, and independent advisors. It's just really noble and hard work. And the great thing about pensions, it's the only product in the world that'll allow an individual to be able to create a personal pension.
Yeah, that's great. And Mark, do you want to take the honors of introducing our guests?
Yes, thank you. We're joined today by Sheila and Peter from Milliman. I'm going to turn it over to them to let them introduce themselves. But I'm really excited to be a part of this topic today, because I think they put together something really, really cool and unique. I had an opportunity to go on the website and go and get my score, and it's a cool tool. It really resonates with your FICO credit score. You go on there and you get a score, and it's simple, and it's really, I think, a great opportunity to help hardworking Americans who are working and they're very focused on taking care of their families, but also to really focus on their journeys. So I'll turn it over first to Sheila to introduce herself, give us some background, and then I'll turn it over to Peter. Sheila?
Well, thank you, Martin, and thank everyone for including Milliman on That Annuity Show. We're so excited to be here and so excited to talk about the RISE tool. A little bit about Milliman, a little bit about my role at Milliman. Milliman, at heart, we are an actuarial consulting firm. We're often referred to as the actuary's actuary. But my role within Milliman, I am an external portfolio consultant. So I represent our managed risk strategies to our sub-advised clients there. So I work a lot with insurance carriers and their wholesalers to represent our sub-advised products. I've been with Milliman 6 years now. I have been in the industry. I quit counting at 25, so we'll just say north of 25 there. been an advisor in the industry, been an annuity wholesaler with various companies, and then came to the sub-advisory side with Milliman 6 years ago. Very passionate about retirement planning, very passionate about lifetime income, and just very excited about the work that we're doing here with the RISE tool.
Thanks, Sheila. Exciting background. Appreciate your love and passion for the business. Peter, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Martin. Peter Zhang here. I'm a principal in the Chicago office of Milliman. I've been with Milliman for 21 years and counting. So my specialty here is in financial risk management. My background is in actuarial science and financial analysis. I actually started out my career as an actuarial student, designing and pricing and reserving for annuity products. Ever since, I've been in the retirement readiness industry, and I love what I do. I would say I am the actuarial brain behind the RISE score. I can answer all the questions that you have about how RISE score works.
Well, that's great, and thank you. And we really need folks like yourself, Peter, to help Sheila and I on the sales side execute. And Sheila, could you tell us a little bit more about Milliman and a little bit about what they focus on?
Sure. So Milliman, at heart, we are an actuarial consulting firm. We've been around since the 40s. And from an actuarial perspective, we touch actuarial work in the healthcare space, the life insurance space, property and casualty, as well as employee benefits. So some folks listening to the call may have heard of Milliman through our employee benefit space in the 401k side there. Peter and I work for Milliman Financial Risk Management, which is part of the life practice. So again, we're working, my role as that external portfolio consultant, I'm working with the wholesalers and the insurance carriers who in turn work with clients to help try to provide solutions to have that secure retirement there. That's a little bit about Milliman and my work with Milliman and the RISE score. The RISE score was developed at Milliman in 2018, and a lot of the development around the RISE score came from a need that we saw at Milliman. And you touched a lot on this, Martin, with the fact that people are living longer. Pensions are going by the wayside. Fewer and fewer people actually have pensions. And when you look at what future costs are going to be in the future as far as health care and cost of living, it's a real challenge for consumers to plan for that secure retirement. So Milliman, we saw a need to create a simple tool, just like you said, we based it on a credit score metric, if you will, so very relatable to the American consumer, to try to give them a simple tool that would give them a retirement readiness score, if you will. So a couple of things. The RISE score, which let's go ahead and talk about what it stands for. Retirement Income Security Evaluation. Retirement Income Security Evaluation. But when I think of sustainable, we want to have that sustainable income. But the RISE score, basically what I want to say is it's a tool not to replace all of the wonderful financial planning software tools that we have out there, but to really complement them. And it's certainly not to replace the need to have comprehensive financial planning. I like to say planning for your future and planning for retirement, that is not a DIY project you want to do. So the RISE score really is a conversation starting point for people to assess questions and get a feel of where they are in terms of their retirement readiness.
Yes,
well, that's great.
I also would like to expand on what Sheila had provided on Milliman. In my opinion, Milliman is uniquely qualified to provide a tool like this, because to me, retirement success is one goal. But under the one goal, there are many different components. So, for example, you need to manage your investment correctly. You need to manage your income correctly. You need to manage your health expenses correctly. So when we were developing the RISE score, we actually worked together with many different disciplines within Milliman. We have worked with, like Sheila had pointed out, employee benefit practice. We have worked with health practice to study the impact of healthcare costs, and we have worked with other departments to work on asset allocation and things like this. So with all the resources within Milliman, we put together and came up with this comprehensive tool, RISE, that hopefully will be very useful in achieving this one goal, and that is retirement success.
Hey Peter, a question for you, and Sheila, 2018 sounds, by one yardstick, wow, this is a new tool. What's happened between 2018 and 2021 is mind-blowing. Peter, from an actuarial perspective, how much has early retirements changed the math? Potential the likelihood of forced early retirements changed the math. How has inflation, the fear of inflation changed how you think about your retirement, or is your tool so broad that it actually has already factored that into the equation?
Yes, the tool is actually fairly comprehensive. It covers a lot of broad factors. Just as you had pointed out, Paul, between 2018 and 2021, a lot of things have changed. So when we were designing the tool, we wanted to strike a balance of the long-term expectation versus the short-term changes. So because retirement is a really long-term event. You think about people can retire at age 65 and live up to 20, 25, 30 years. So there we need to have a fairly stable course that we want to take, and yet we want to be able to adjust for whatever changes that might be coming in the short term. So the way we did it is we set the assumptions underlying the projections. We have long-term component, and we also adjusted these assumptions at least on an annual basis. We review that every quarter, and we want to see how the short-term changes would impact the long-term expectation. And that's where our broad actuarial expertise will come in, and that's what actuaries do. They set actuarial assumptions.
So Peter and Sheila, you mentioned the tool allows for people to put inputs in, and then over time you get to put more inputs in to improve your RISE score. Can you explain on kind of how the tool works and helps people manage their retirement journey?
Sure. If you would like, what I always like to say, I can take the end user, the client experience, and Peter can talk to that actuarially. So, good question, because similar to a credit score, we all know what we can do to improve our credit score. And conversely, we also know what happens when we do certain things that can decrease our credit score, if you will. So we can talk about the inputs that one can do to change their outcome, if you will. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to human behavior and will someone actually do these things. So for example, when you think about some of the inputs that can be modified to change your credit score, one of the things we could do, talk about possibly, do we want to increase the annuity allocation or put annuity allocation to put some guaranteed sources of income in there? Do we want to reduce our expenses? Do we want to prolong our working years and work longer? That's really not a crowd favorite there, But again, that's something that one could do to improve that RISE score. What about earning additional income in retirement? Part-time job, the PTJ as I like to say it. So there are many things that people can do to modify that RISE score, but again, it's that human behavioral aspect behind that. And I'd like to pause here and mention Peter has actually authored a white paper with several Milliman colleagues that is specific just to the RISE score. And it gives 3 case studies, and I think this is so important because the first case study starts with a 25-year-old. The second case study is a 55-year-old couple 10 years away from retirement, and then we have a third case study for someone who's retired. I think that's so important because so many people think retirement is just for people that are about to enter into retirement. Well, we all know on this call, the time to start planning for retirement is not 6 months before you retire. The earlier you start having these conversations, the higher likelihood of success will be there. So I think it's interesting that Peter has included that case study of someone young at 25 years of age. But that's what I'll talk about is some of the components that can be modified. Peter, I'll let you speak to the inputs from an actuarial perspective.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. So I want to talk a little bit about RISE score under the hood, and I would say of all the tools on the market, I think RISE score right now represents the most comprehensive tool that can reflect how prepared people are for retirement. So the RISE score is unlike other tools that, let's say, only focuses on asset allocation or only focuses on annuity purchase or things like that. The RISE tool encompasses, I would say, basically the entire universe of factors that comes into retirement readiness. So it accounts for Social Security, it accounts for investments, it accounts for potential purchase of income annuities. It reflects the inflation, and within inflation we have different inflation inputs for regular expenses versus medical expenses, as we would expect that medical expense inflation would go somewhat higher than the general expense of inflation. So it is in fact a fairly comprehensive tool, although it is not really particularly designed for any one product. We say, okay, we sell this one product. No, we would just say, okay, the generic income annuity, the generic equity investment, generic fixed income investments. So all the specifics are still left for the end user to work out with their financial advisors.
One of the things that go ahead.
Yes, one thing that I'm pretty proud about the RISE score is a stochastic projection. I would say the word stochastic may throw people off, but in fact it is trying all the possible paths. So in trying all the possible paths, we have 1,000 scenarios. So within all these scenarios, we not only have changes in stock market, we also have potential changes in fixed income. We also have potential changes in mortality. So we encompasses basically all the possible variables one can face in the future. And of the 1,000 scenarios, we don't just average all the 1,000 scenarios. We pay particular attention to the bottom 10% of the scenario, because it is the best scenario that really matters. If you're successful in your retirement, great, have a boat, enjoy a vacation, have a lot of fun. It is when you're not successful, that's where the problem comes in. So we put a higher weight on the bottom 10% of the scenarios to emphasize the importance of retirement success. So that's where I'm most proud about the RISE score calculation there.
So I just wanted to say that certainly a huge fan personally, and on behalf of my company, a huge fan of the RISE score, and as you know, we feature it on our website. I think it's very hard to overstate just how much computing power and IP is behind that simple score you get. And I'm just going to buttress what you said, Peter. You know, the reality is there's tons of calculators out in the market, but I'm gonna generalize, but a lot of them are virtually just backed by spreadsheets, backed by Excel spreadsheets, and ask the participant to make all their own assumptions when they're not necessarily qualified to do so. What's interesting about the RISE score is it gives you those options. Like, you have the option to put in your own allocations, make some assumptions. But at the end of the day, like, most of us don't necessarily, even if you're a financial professional, you need some basis to actually make estimates. And you've built those estimation processes into your software. So I'm going to give one example, which is longevity. So one of the many things I like about the RISE score is that as you go through the process, at the end, it says, based on how you've described yourself, you're likely to live to X age, and your spouse is likely to live to Y age. A lot of the calculators you see in the market, you put in what you expect, what your life expectancy is. And there's some value to that, but I think it's very important to have sort of like the intellectual basis that you've actually built into the system. So thank you for that. But I really want to set this up for a question, which is, you did this white paper and you talked about three different scenarios. What were some of the key takeaways, or were there any surprises you saw in there that were different between scenario A, B, and C, the 25-year-old versus the married 55, retiring at 65, or the retired pensioner? Were there some big takeaways that came out of that study?
Peter, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. Why don't I have a first step at it? Of course, we have these three case studies that are fairly representative of three distinct population groups. The young person who just started working and started saving for retirement, and the couple that is approaching retirement, and the person who had just started retirement. And all these analyses, the conclusion was fairly intuitive for the most part, because you can say, okay, for the younger person, you'll do better if you save more, and if you invest in a more aggressive way, because the time is on your side. For the older couple, or for the person who had just retired, well, you need to be a little bit more conservative, and you need to cut down on your expenses. And another interesting factoid about RISE score is it also reflects the possibility of we call that the vitality score, the possibility of actually going back to workforce, let's say work part-time, and supplement your income. So those kind of things. But I would say what comes out very interesting was the addition of a deferred income annuity. And that is, let's say, at the beginning of your retirement, you purchase a deferred income annuity that are guaranteed payment, let's say when you are age 85, age 80, sometime into the future. That the addition of the deferred income annuity generally improves the RISE score quite a bit, and that's fairly interesting. But then there's not something that people normally think about, but actually makes a fairly good sense, because that solution is means that you have enough asset to cover. Basically, you have a good amount of asset to cover your income up to the point when the deferred annuity are going to be effective. And then after that, if you run off your asset, no problem. At least you will have this deferred income annuity to be a safety net. And if you're doing well, okay, great. Enjoy more of your retirement and enjoy more of your legacy and so on and so forth. So that's one thing, one takeaway that I found a little bit surprising, but actually a good surprise.
Yeah, Martin, I'm curious to know how the tools fit in with your distribution strategy, your advisors. Some of these tools are wonderful, but individuals don't want to spend time going through a website. I've seen situations where advisors will take people, actually fill the information out, do it for clients. I mean, what do you think the future is of these types of great products? Is it leave it to the do-it-yourselfers, or turn advisors into advocates and almost like tech assistants for using things like this?
That's a great question, Paul. When you think about human behavior and individuals, studies show, and then advisors fall in these traps as well, is that investors don't get what the market is. And the reason for that is the certainty of life is uncertainty. And as people travel through their lives, things happen and they become very emotional. The same thing with advisors. So I think it's really important that advisors and consumers come together and really look at planning software. This RISE tool, I mean, it's really great for comprehension for the average hardworking person that's focused on what whatever field there is. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us in the entire insurance industry to sell more annuities, because as we've seen, annuity assets under management has not grown anywhere near where assets under management with products that don't offer these guarantees and these protections against human behavior.
Ramsey, what's been your experience using this tool? Like, how much have clients done this on their own? How much have you used this as a facilitated dialogue?
So I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine who's an insurance agent, and when we first put this on our site, I sent it to him and I said, take a look at this. And this is, keep in mind, this is an experienced financial professional. And so he ran his RISE score, and frankly, he didn't like the answer he got, right? And it was real eye-opener for him. So he made a lot of changes. He said he spent a lot of time sort of agonizing over it. Not that not that we were trying to create the stress. I just wanted to get his opinion on it. But I think the important thing is it was a really big aha moment for him. And and it's the challenge is that so often there's a discussion with somebody, whoever it happens to be, who provides you with a 150-page plan, right? And it may have a lot of information in it. But what you really need is one particular signal that helps you, again, so this speaks to the human behavior issues that Martin mentioned, as well as Sheila, is that at the end of the day, you need something to sort of spur you to action. And that's the real power of this. And again, I'm going to repeat what I said before. It's not. It's very different from other tools because it's actually based on like an enormous amount of very sophisticated IP, as opposed to being a sort of a simplistic model in the background, which unfortunately is the norm. So that to me was one of the most striking examples of how somebody was impacted by using it.
Interesting. Sheila, how long does it take somebody to actually, go through it online? If I had all my financial papers in, one place, is this a 20 minutes, 30-minute exercise?
I would say if you have all of your financial papers in place there, you're probably looking at about 10 minutes. It does not take that long to do it. It's a very intuitive tool that if you've got it's plug and play. And I will also add to Ramsey's comments, the first time I did it for myself, okay, we're all in the industry, been in the industry for a very long time. Well, when you take a look at your own I was like your friend Ramsey. I'm like, I thought I was doing a really good job. And that's where you can kind of tweak some things and see where you can make some changes, like we talked about, whether it's incorporating annuities, whether it's changing the asset allocation mix or changing your savings rate, things like that. A couple of things I will mention, and I'm glad that Peter talked about, how it changes with incorporating the annuity there. The tool is agnostic. When it comes to annuities, we do not recommend specific products. It is an agnostic tool there. And to your point, Ramsey, while it's a very robust and complex tool that's behind all of this, it's a very simple tool to use. And again, just a great way to at least start that conversation for someone who's going to go and speak with their financial professional. Because as we all have gleaned from this call, there's a whole lot to the retirement planning aspect, and I think this is such a great way to start.
Yeah.
Can I just jump on one more thing there? I was going to say that, like, as a savvy, like a remote advising savvy advisor, poor use of words, an advisor that's very good at advising remotely, who can pull it up on a screen, can actually put together sort of a sample case in a matter of like 90 seconds if they really want to. And maybe it won't be perfect, but it'll get them most of the way there.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ramsey. I think this would be a really good tool for a Zoom call with a client. You at least want to have sort of that initial discussion. Sheila, if you say 10 minutes, you're getting my wheels turning. By the way, Ramsey, I'm going to live forever, and I'm fine. All my planning's fine. Hey, Martin, kind of coming back to what you said, which is an interesting stat, which is, let's look at sometimes we're so myopic we look just at our sliver of the universe, but where do we fit? And wow, assets under management dwarfing assets being put where they need to be put, which is protection against market downturns and creating guaranteed income in retirement. What do you think? What are the biggest reasons? And where does a tool like RISE fit in getting a change in behavior?
Well, it fits with advisors, number one, but number two, more importantly, if we can get more consumers walking in to their advisor and saying, "Hey, how do you help me improve my score?" Because advisors think that they can do the work of what Milliman does, what any major insurance company does, like Peter's background, that they think that they can outperform 150 actuaries that are at my company that are managing our annuity portfolio. So it's that behavior to say, well, hey, there's nothing wrong with me saying, hey, I'm going to take a portion of your assets and put it with an insurance company, de-risk it. It's no different than them telling their client who has more than enough money to pay their house off to buy homeowners insurance, to buy liability insurance. It's an opportunity for advisors to say, hey, my job is to tell you how to leverage and de-risk your portfolio using well-capitalized insurance industry. Why wouldn't you do it with products that take the pressure off of you making an emotional decision? What a lot of people fall into and why they don't get the returns is that, back to the uncertainty of life, they need to pull money out for something, and they have to pull it out when they need it. The markets aren't always going to be in the places where you need to pull it out, and that's very detrimental to your returns. And when you look at studies, when it comes to fixed income, people get over 300 basis points less than the annual return on fixed income and over 250 basis points less on equities. And advisors are part of that behavior because they're not setting clients up for that ability to be successful with guaranteed protected income to cover these needs that clients have.
Yeah, I think Martin, agree with you. I think the role of the advisor, probably the most valuable role is psychologist and a coach, right? And I love the idea of like coaching somebody to get a higher score, Sheila. I don't know. We're kind of at the top of the time. I mean, Ramsey, listen, you've been pounding the table hard for this tool. I mean, what are the thoughts? What recommendations or would you give either to Sheila and Peter as they head forward, or if I'm an advisor listening, what should I do? Should I put it on my website? Should I, what would you tell me to do if I like this?
Yeah, I think that it is. It's a very valuable tool for initial conversations, for lead generation, for really getting people thinking about a few key issues. I'm going to go back to that longevity piece because people need to see a number that sort of has some science behind it and say, okay, it's a starting point, right? Now there's standard deviation around the number by definition, but like just as a starting point, I think it helps bring context very quickly. I think, and I've talked to the team about this before. I think there's lots of data that powerful engine produces that I think can be put up front. Like for example, I'd love to actually put that longevity number up front. It comes, you put all your information in, and then and you get that as part of a broader report. It's something I'd like to also provide on a standalone basis, just as one example. And then last thing I want to say is, Martin, I like that homeowners insurance analogy. I'm gonna borrow that. I'll give you full credit.
Thank you. We use it out in the field all day long.
Martin, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm an advisor, listening to this in the marketplace. I mean, what should I be doing? How would you recommend I pull it into my practice?
I would take a look at the white paper that was put together around RISE. I would go out to the Alliance of Lifetime Income, the tools available there as well, and really take the opportunity to get to understand your client and know that most clients like guarantees. Most of your clients you're going to work with weren't salespeople or entrepreneurs. They like that steady income. And why take all that pressure on yourself to create that steady income when you can de-risk your portfolio? Because that's your number one job, is to protect your people. And that's why you do asset allocation diversity, right? So why wouldn't you do income diversification so you can create a solid foundation for your customer and your client?
Oh, great advice. Sheila and Peter, where do we go? How do we find out more about this tool?
Absolutely. Well, first
Sheila?
of all, yes, therisescore.com is number one. And I love Ramsey's idea about advisors actually pulling that website and doing a Zoom call with a client online. That's an awesome bit of advice. So therisescore.com, alex.fyi/rise. And then Martin had mentioned the Alliance for Lifetime Income. Great resource there. There is a client version as well as an advisor version of the RISE score. So you've got 3 great places that you can access it. We'll be sure and send you all of the links as well as the link to the white paper that Peter has authored.
Excellent. All right, we'll put all those links in the show notes and also on our website. And let me just thank Ramsey. Thanks again, Sheila, Peter. Great to have you on. Sheila, great to have you back. You're one of our repeat guests. And Martin, thanks for being a terrific guest host for us. Hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to having you back again sometime in the future.
Thanks for having me. Very exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Terrific. All right, listen, stay tuned next week. Hope you liked it. Give us feedback and give us your ideas for what our show should be. And join us again next week for another episode of That Annuity Show.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.